Hello, 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 hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Radio Free Wall Street. Very important broadcast. We have got the oil market in complete disarray. We have got probably one of our greatest trades ever lining up in oil. We got a market that does not understand the fundamentals. It's being fed bogus information, and it is at half the value it should be. I'll explain that to you. So I want to introduce you to one of these trades that only comes along every few years, and that is a market that's completely got it wrong by misinformation, no accident, and is ignoring the crisis that's brewing. Yeah, oil crisis. Now, I know you've heard about the miracle of U.S. oil, and America is now the world's largest producer of oil, but what they forget to mention to you is two things. We're also the world's largest consumer of oil, that's one. Oh, yeah, and there's another thing. A lot of the oil we produce, we can't refine. So we actually ship a lot of oil out of the country and buy the oil refineries can use. And you've probably heard how oil inventories are increasing in the United States and how diesel fuel and gasoline inventories are high for this time of year. What they didn't tell you was, yeah, that's because 10% of the refineries are still closed, have not opened up after maintenance, and that is because of the flooding you've heard about in the Midwest. Well, what you may not know is that farming is a huge, huge, huge consumer of distillates, okay, diesel fuel and gasoline, okay? Those big mama tractors, they burn a lot. Well, the problem is when the tractor's in 3 feet of water and the field becomes Lake Pontchartrain, it's kind of hard to burn up any diesel fuel. So if you're not buying the diesel fuel which they've made for you ahead of time, in anticipation of planting season, then that fuel backs up. And the refineries, if they have nobody that's buying their product, then they don't open up. And then you see the crude oil, which is the basic the product that they consume, not being consumed, that backs up. So yes, you have oil inventories in the United States increasing, but it's because of a weather phenomenon. Now, let's go further. You're told that no matter what happens in this Gulf War, no matter what shit hits the fan, that it's all okay, and the reason why is that vast amounts of new oil is coming to market. Now, the bullshit there is that there's a lot of money invested in fracking. A lot of investment has been pulled. At the current price of crude oil at $52 a barrel, they can't frack successfully. There is a market that is in trouble, and investment is drying up. And if you allow for the fracking projects that have been funded, if you allow for all the bullshit, just run all your numbers, reality is that U.S. increased oil production this year will be somewhere between 100 and 200,000 barrels. And let me tell you something. There's a time delay. See, once you punch the well and get it operational, then you got to run the pipe to the well. And then you got the storage facility, and then you've got to have the whole infrastructure for refineries down the line. That's not in. Okay, if we look at the additional refineries that are coming online, the additional pipelines that will be up for the next 2 years, if we look at the additional refinery and export capacity, the number you come up with is that American oil production will increase by 100,000 to 200,000 barrels per day. Now, add this to it. You heard that oil demand is falling. That's true. But again, that's the headline for the bullshit artists. The reality is oil demand was projected to increase by 1.3 million barrels a day, and it's still going to increase by 1 million barrels a day. So the idea that oil demand is dropping is not true. It's still a plus number. Okay, I didn't tell you that. Now, there's a whole lot of things that they aren't telling you about that's a real pending crisis. Venezuela was good for 1.5 million barrels a day of oil. It's producing none. Iran was good for 3.5 million barrels a day, and they're basically smuggling out of there 500,000 barrels. That oil's out in the market. In Libya, Tripoli's about to fall, and that's good for another 1.5 to 1.75 million barrels a day coming on the market. And what they're not telling you is that OPEC and the Russians have agreed to cut production 3 to 4 million barrels a day currently. And by the way, they've cut more than that. And even though you're hearing the squabbling, they are going to increase the production cuts even more and reaffirm them again at the end of June and July. Now, eventually, the rivers will recede to the banks. Eventually, the market will come alive again. The fields will be plowed. The diesel fuel will be consumed. People will be vacationing on the lakes again, and things will be opening up. And another factor that they aren't telling you is that the sanctions will take their bite. What's coming out of Venezuela, what's coming out of Libya, what's coming out of Iran, but they're not telling, and also the cuts by OPEC. Now, there's another factor to this thing, and that is that Donald Trump, by tightening the screws on Iran, has forced her back into a corner. Now, I'm not going to lose any sleep over Iran. They are a terrorist state. But you've now chosen to engage them, and they have found a very successful way to fight back. Okay? And their successful way of fighting back is, we are just going to attack the shipping in the Straits and all the boats that load in the Gulf terminals, and we're going to do a whodunit. We don't know who did it. And with the confusion and unpopularity of Donald Trump, remember, the world is against the fact that he walked away from the nuclear agreement and the treaty with Iran. The world is very upset that, once again, Donald Trump is going the wrong direction by unilaterally putting sanctions against Iran, breaking a deal, pissing him off, and creating havoc. They don't want to participate. In other words, Donald Trump is trying to build a world response to Iran. The Japanese said, well, we're not really sure that Iran really was behind these tanker bombings. 6 tankers have been hit. The reality is confusion abounds. And Iran is taking advantage of that. So, you have got an oil market that has got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 million barrels a day removed from it. You have got a global economy that is not slowing down. You have got oil demand that's still increasing. And another myth is, well, the U.S. economy is going into recession, as is the global economy, and therefore, oh my God, there will not be any need for these missing barrels. The oil market will still be oversupplied, and that is just not true. Now, Donald Trump wants to get elected. Just this week he said that if he's not elected, the stock market will crash and the economy will go into recession. He's up the ante again. He's got to have the Fed lower interest rates, and they will be bullied into doing it, which is a severe mistake, a couple more times this year. And he's going to back away from any severe sanctions against the Chinese after he gets done jerking them and us off, okay? Donald Trump cannot not afford to topple the global economy. And as you saw with Mexico twice, with Canada, with Kim Jong-Nunchucks of North Korea, when it comes to the critical moment, he backs down, changes the rule, declares a victory, goes home. It's the art of the bullshit deal. So when you talk about Donald Trump and the art of the deal, you have to add the important part, the art of the bullshit deal. So Trump is moving in directions that are insane. He's affecting the economic equation in a way that will be disastrous. Let me explain this. What's happening is global businesses don't know how to react to Donald Trump. Okay? And the global supply chain is catching up. He's changing world trade. He's not slowing it down, he's changing it. And he's changing his ways that are detrimental to the United States and in ways that the markets don't yet comprehend. So again, that represents phenomenal opportunity in the marketplace. It represents a market that has got it wrong. And let me give you the money ball on this. That means that oil prices are due to double in value. Now that you grasp that part of the equation, you can see how oil is one of our most profitable trades that's come along in years. And why is that? Well, the markets are not understanding that the inventory increase in the United States are a result of flooding. The markets are not understanding that the 3 million barrel per day increase in U.S. production is fantasy. It's not going to happen. It's not possible. The markets do not understand that Donald Trump is not going to put severe sanctions against the Chinese, and they do not understand that the U.S. economy is growing like gangbusters, and the rest of the global economy is not in a slowdown. The numbers of industrial production improve all over the world. And so that means that the market is listening to bullshit. They have not taken into account the lost oil from revolution, insurrections, embargoes, and plain manipulation by OPEC holding oil off the market. When you put all that in there, you got an oil price that's going to double in the next 10 months, my humble opinion. You've got a fantastic trading opportunity, and you got a market that's got it wrong. Now, let me tell you another side of this equation. Why are the Saudis so willing to cut production? They're the world's largest swing producer. Now, when you talk about U.S. oil production, the amount of oil U.S. exports is minuscule, okay, and imports a lot of oil. The problem is that a lot of oil we produce we can't refine. So we have to buy different grades of crudes that our antiquated refineries can handle. So there's a little bit of what you call U.S. exports of oil is basically not a net export because no one zeroes out the oil we import to refine. Yeah, I forgot to tell you that. The other situation is, again, as I pointed out to you earlier, the assumptions of how much oil, new production techniques and growth in the U.S. oil industry is going to be is wildly wrong. We're looking at 200,000 barrels a day, and people are running 3 million barrels per day. It's not going to happen. So the market is making fatal mistakes in that the assumption is world oil demand will collapse. The fact of the matter is world oil demand is still increasing by 1 million barrels a day. They're assuming the Chinese sanctions will slow the global economy. They're not. Trump will not let that happen. And they're assuming that Venezuela will come back in production. It's going to take years. They're assuming that Trump is going to back away from the Iranian sanctions and embargoes on their oil. Not going to happen. And they're assuming that OPEC is not going to agree to huge production cuts. Again, a mistake. Let me explain about the OPEC situation. Saudi Arabia runs Aramco, the world's largest oil company, not to be confused with Pemex and some of the piece of shit third world oil companies that are falling apart. Venezuelan oil companies, another example. They have world-class infrastructure. They have the best petroleum engineers in the world. They have the lowest oil production cost per barrel in the world. They have the most modern terminals, and they can produce oil like no one else. Aramco is the world's biggest corporation. It is the world's most profitable company, bar none. And they need to go ahead and offer that, okay, as a sovereign wealth fund in essence. That frees up the vast amount of wealth that's in that company. That allows the Saudis to go into more modern financing. It allows them to diversify their economy. Now, they are smart enough to know that that's not going to happen at $60 barrel oil. Their own numbers say that's why that's basic Brent. So they need $80, $90, $100 barrel oil to make this work. That is why they are willing to cut production to force the oil price higher. Now, in the coming weeks, you're going to hear about a surprise announcement that OPEC has agreed to extend production cuts and increase them. And you're going to hear a surprise that U.S. inventories are going to start falling as the refineries go back to work and as consumption increases after the floods pass. Then you're going to hear about how the oil market is being starved by Iranian sanctions in Venezuela and Tripoli and the crises around the world. And this means that this grossly undersupplied oil market will wake up and realize it's got a problem, and the price will be bid up consistently and significantly. Now, that means you got one of the greatest oil trading opportunities ever if you know what you're doing. Really phenomenal. Now, there's another wild card here. Now, that's all I need. What I've got in place with U.S. coming back on stream, world demand stabilizing, U.S. oil production increases minuscule. I got something that's a big wild card, and that is the Gulf. What's going to happen to Strait of Hormuz? Well, right now, 6 tankers have had the shit blown out of them and locked out of commission. Several of them, by the way, are so severely damaged that they're going for salvage. I didn't tell you that, huh? And the United States has been sitting there with a limp dick, like a boxer that's kind of been hit with a punching, down for the count, kind of woozy in his head. That's America. Trump does not know what to do. He's unable to build a consensus. Japan said they're not convinced that Iran did it. Iran's playing a game like, we didn't do it. Well, we didn't know what to do. We wouldn't do something like that. It's bad. It's not in their best interest. Of course it's in their best interest. Of course they retaliate against America and punish America for sanctions, and they get away with it because America, live it this way, America may at some point hit a couple missile batteries. They may knock out a couple warships at best. America is not going to war with Iran. Do not confuse Iran with Iraq. A war with Iran would be costly and devastating and involve more troops than we care to put on the ground there. And our victory is not assured. So reality is that we can bomb them back and retaliate. They have no incentive so far to back down, and they're not. They are continuing to escalate the ante. And that means that the wild card is what happens with the Straits. Now, don't believe in the fantasy the Straits will be shut down. They will not. But what they will do is harass shipping. They will knock out boats. And they will have a situation where it'll become costly and more difficult to get product out of there. That satisfies their needs very well. And they're kicking Trump in the balls. And Trump is right now staying there flat-footed, not sure what he can do. And my opinion is that he's made a severe mistake in not retaliating already. He should have knocked out some patrol boats, some missile batteries on the islands. And he's not able to do that, which is a very bad sign. So that's the wild card. We are going to double an oil price no matter what. How fast that happens is whether or not this Iranian situation and the sanctions blow up in his face. It was not a wise decision. So would I take my last $10,000 and trade oil? Hell yes, I would. Do I regard this as a great speculative trade that has potential to make a lot of money? Yes, I do. Do I think the oil market has got it so wrong it's ridiculous? Yes, I've seen this many times in oil, and you have too. You've seen oil at 25, you've seen oil at 150, and once you understand the swings and what makes it happen, you can get in front of them and make a lot of money, and we have. So, bottom line is, they are underestimating demand. They are overestimating production increases out of America. They are not counting oil lost by insurrection and revolution and regime change and sanctions. And they're not counting even the amount of oil that's being withdrawn from the market by Russia and all of OPEC. Look, you'll see in the coming days proof of this, okay? The oil market will ratchet higher and higher. It'll swing. But it's going to go higher and higher on bounce. And more announcements will come forth. You're going to see eventually, not right away, the inventories in the United States start coming down as the big consumers in the agricultural arena buy it. You're going to see crude oil inventories come down as refiners come back on stream. You're going to see consumption increase. And you're not going to see a worldwide slowdown, not by any stretch of imagination. So this has got money and success written all over it, and I want you in the game. I really, really, really want you trading oil. You really, really can make a lot of money. Really, 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 it's a risky proposition and well worth it because the fundamentals and the stars are aligned like I've never seen before. I've never seen an oil market that has got it so wrong, that is priced so low, and about to see oil prices double.